But Aunt Keziah had provided a safe haven for them all. Her sharp tongue was sometimes difficult to live with, but Lanie loved her. She thumbed through the pages and stopped abruptly at the entry marked July the 4th, 1931. That had been the last 4th of July, and the memory of it was etched clearly on her memory. As she read her words, her cheeks turned warm. At the fair today, I was standing at the Ferris wheel, afraid to get in because it reminded me of the day Mama died. Suddenly, Owen was there, and he teased me into getting on the Ferris wheel with him. We got in, and I hung on, but I was scared. He put his arm around me, and when the car started rocking, I just threw myself against him and hung on as if I was a little girl and he was my daddy. But it wasn't like that. As I was pressed against him, I knew he was aware I wasn't the little girl he always thinks of when he thinks of Lanie Freeman, and I knew he wasn't the father figure either. I could have let go, but I didn't want to. I just held on to him and pretended I was frightened. I know it was wrong, but it'll never come to anything else. He's engaged to Louise now, and I've had to put that dream away. For a long moment, Lanie stood in the center of the room staring down at the words. She had written things in this journal she would never share with anyone else. The thought drew her to her writing desk. Still shivering against the cold, she put on a sweater and rubbed her hands together to warm her fingers. Then she opened the notebook, picked up a pen, and began to write. December 27, 1931. Oh, and he's not married to Louise Langley. That's the biggest thing in my life right now. She broke their engagement, and when I heard of it, my heart nearly jumped out of my chest. Roger wants me to marry him, but I can't. I've got too many problems. I've got to handle all of these things. 1, Davies can't read. 2, my sister Maeva has a wild streak that's liable to bust out at any time. 3, Daddy's in prison and may not be out for a long time. 4, I want to be a writer, but there's no way I ever can be. 5, the depression is getting worse, and I don't see how we're going to pay the bills. 6, I've got Cass to think of. Davis brought her home, and she's going to have a baby, and I've got to help her somehow or other. She held her pen poised over the journal for a moment, and then she added one note. In less than a week, it's going to be a brand new year. I'm going to trust God for every one of these problems. Firmly, she blotted the ink, closed the notebook, and put it back in the lower drawer of the chest. Then she rose and left the room, her head high. As she started down the hall toward the stairs, she stopped by the room that Maeva shared with Cass. She opened the door and saw her sister propped up in bed, wearing a heavy Mackinaw coat to keep off the cold. She was reading a copy of True Romance magazine. Looking up, she grinned. You ought to read some of these stories, Lanie. Never mind those stories. Get out of bed. It's time to go to church. I'm not going to church this morning. It's too cold. You've got to go to church. You know that. So let's not argue about it. You can't make me go. I'm bigger'n you are. Indeed, it was true that Maeva, almost 17 and 1 year younger than Lanie, was larger. She was also stronger and more athletic. Lanie stared at the girl and tried to think of a way to convince her. You know, she said finally, I can't make you go, but if Daddy were here, you'd go, wouldn't you? Maeva bit her lower lip, threw the magazine on the floor, and came out from under the covers. All right, I'll go to church. She glared at Lanie. I'm telling you, you need to read a few love stories. All you ever think about is money. The words hurt. Of course she had to think about money. Somebody had to pay the bills, and considering the desperate times of the Depression...